Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 1 year anniversary of Sherlock Co. and the Q&A to celebrate this. Yeah. So obviously, it's been a whole year since the podcast started, and it's been amazing. And to celebrate, I've decided to organize this podcast where you will have your guys' questions answered by none other than Joel Emery, the writer of Sherlock & Co. Now, Joel, if you'd like to join, you are very much welcome to. And I will pull up you guys' questions. Just a second. Now, I will say I have got a lot of very good questions this time around. Very good. Yeah. And just a second.
Did I do it? Did I do it? I think I did it.
Questions. Now, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Can you be heard? I don't know if you're speaking, but...
Is it working now? I feel like it's working.
Oh, I can't. Let me check.
It might be because I'm called Sneaker and a bit weird.
Let me rejoin. This is going well. 1 second, guys.
It's going great. Oh, I've got the floor all to myself. I can say whatever I want.
This
what?
is very weird. 1 second. I will pull up some questions and I'll fix my audio later, but I can ask questions in the meanwhile. Right. First question for Joel is from Jamie. And it is, do you prefer writing original content like that of Jackie and The Offensive, or using ACD as the source material to build from? And meanwhile, I will fix my audio.
Oh, that's a good question. First of all, hello everyone, and happy birthday to us. You're all included in that happy birthday. And thanks for being here. I don't know if anyone's ever done it from the 10th of October, apart from me. But if you have, well done. That's a long time. That's a lot of us. Jamie's question, do I prefer original stuff or adapting stuff? I've always slightly been adapting in one way or another. Obviously, Jackie there is the example. I was kind of, it was built around real events, but obviously it moved to modern day. I think ultimately I wouldn't be much of a writer if I said I just like adapting other people's work. I think ultimately my favorite thing is to do the original stuff myself, but I will say there's a massive what's the word I'm looking for? There's like, I don't know, there's a big weight off your shoulders when someone else has done such amazing work that you're sort of lucky enough to go and adapt, and making your own image. And we're lucky enough to be working off some of, the most famous well-established piece of literature in the world. So we're very lucky in that respect. There's obviously pressure, but it's almost it's not the same stress, especially what we had with The Offensive, which was weekly, where we were like, oh my God, what's this episode going to be about? Fortunately, somebody decided what these stories were going to be about a long time ago. And yeah, but that brings another pressure of not wanting to let people down. But let's answer the question, Joel. I'm going to say I prefer original stuff, but I think it's easier and less stressful doing adaptations and more enjoyable, I'd say. That's my answer, Bottler, but I realise the problem is you can't hear me. I don't think. Yeah, that's my answer. Oh no, how do we do this? How does it go on? Or maybe I mute. I'll mute.
Right. Okay. I now have my audio working, so let's move on to the next question. Let me know if you guys hear me double or anything if the audio is not working very well. But
Can you hear me, Bottler?
yes, I can hear you now.
Oh my God, it's working. Well done, us.
Yeah, finally. Okay. So the next question we don't have a name for, and it is, how much foreshadowing do you actually write into the podcast? I often feel like I'm overthinking it.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm just going to take a sip of chamomile tea because I'm 35 now. How much foreshadowing do I do? Probably I mean, look, I mean, the undeniable thing, it's there. We are making efforts to put little sneaky things in there. I guess the more abstract stuff is themes and sort of thematic devices, which yes, everybody might maybe read too much into. But often things we've put out there, we've gone, oh, no one read into that at all. So yeah, there's definitely, we're putting little breadcrumbs out there. I'm sort of conscious that when we reach certain points, it would be a bit crap if they just sort of came up out of nowhere. So we do always try and put down these little threads that will eventually, hopefully, tie up in a nice way. But yeah, there's foreshadowing out there, but I can totally understand how people can maybe pick certain points apart way more than we intended to, and also it works in the reverse. Like I said, we've put things out there that haven't really had much of a nibble. So yeah, by all means, keep drawing up schemes and theories, because chances are you're probably on the right track, I would imagine, if we're doing our jobs right.
All right, thank you. Now, the next question is from someone you know, and it is from Joff.
Oh, right, that's it. Come on then.
Joff Lock specifically on Twitter. The question is, when you started writing this show, were you adapting the characters to a brief as commissioned rather than writing original characters of your imagination, like in The Offensive? Did this mean it took a while for you for your John and Sherlock to feel like your own, or was it not long before they grew into individuals you think of often and imagine different scenarios, like you did maybe with Woody, Patrick, and Jess?
Yeah, that's a good question. Damn. So I would say Tony at Goalhanger, in some of his early notes, would say things to me like, Sherlock wouldn't say that, Sherlock wouldn't do that. So he was the only character where I say, would, going back to the question, where there would be like a kind of brief involved, but I don't think anybody at Goalhanger was like, they have to be like this. It was just every now and again I'd sort of be prodded towards a different direction for Sherlock. Now, Goalhanger didn't realize it at the time. Adam and I probably had an inkling, like a feeling inside that we didn't quite understand. But ultimately, when you do a show every single week, it could have been the best, strictest brief in the world, and we never would have stuck to it. It would have just ended up becoming our own thing, and it definitely has done. It was, I'd say, do you know what? I'd say it's become our own thing, but it's also become the fans' thing in a way. I think one of the good things about having, an on-running show is we didn't just make 10 episodes 6 months ago and now we're releasing them and going, oh, they liked that and they didn't like that. We can sort of react to what we feel are kind of, I don't know, real-time vibes around certain things. So yeah, they've become our own characters and the fans' own characters, really. Full disclosure, I feel deep down I'm still kind of working on Mariana a bit. It's a bit of a fourth wall break, isn't it? I don't know whether that's just because I'm a guy and I just ultimately insecure about having a female character of like, have I done it right? But I guess, I don't want her to just be the sensible mumsy one, because that's a trope that's kind of like, yeah, it's funny every now and again, but you don't want that to be the bedrock of your character. So she's becoming more sort of like geeky. I think she's lots more familiar with fan culture. She's much more at ease with kind of modern media and the modern world generally. Like she feels more Gen Z-ish, I suppose. So yeah, they've completely become our own characters, really. Feels wrong to say, because obviously there's an important piece of source material that we're supposed to be adapting, but I guess that's the point of adaptations, isn't it? It's your own input on that original thing. Yeah, I feel like they've become our own. And as for the scenarios thing, Adam and I will talk all the time, and the adventure will be almost irrelevant. We'll talk all the time of let's put them in an escape room, or let's make them have to go and watch an awful play with a bad actor in it, kind of thing, because that's the kind of thing that we used to do with The Offensive. We just found it really funny, and now we still find it funny. So yeah, they're all ours, those characters now.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you've done Mariana amazingly. Just my cup of tea.
Thanks.
Yeah. So next question is from Sealbug. Has your perception of the show changed over the time from the beginning of writing to now? Has the characterization/plot stemmed directly from what you first envisioned, or have there been unexpected developments throughout the writing process?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's so good a question. I've just maybe do a serious voice. Yeah, I suppose it has, actually. I think when the show first started, we maybe had some illusions that we were going to make this kind of big, like, cerebral thing, partly because it's Sherlock Holmes, but partly, I guess, that was the BBC's thing. And maybe that was stuck in my head, that you had to be cerebral and serious and dark. I mean, I think if you listen to episode 1, obviously there's that sort of the normal kind of layer of light comedy that we have in our stuff, but I guess it does feel kind of a bit dark, and Sherlock's deductions are they're not like big set pieces, they're just sort of normal, the normal amazing, unstoppable genius of him just comes sort of pouring out of him. I guess we thought that was going to be the case, but it's just not. It's not that easy to. It's not that easy to do. It's not that easy to do. Certainly from a writing angle, I think I'd be absolutely exhausted if I was constantly trying trying to write a genius being a complete genius all the time, and having twists and subplots and sort of like complex things all unraveling and making listeners collapse in the street because it was so brilliant in terms of its complexity. We did maybe envisage a little bit more in that field. And I would say that we've moved much closer towards kind of entertainment, more towards embracing the original adventures rather than making the character necessarily bigger than those stories. Everyone's done Sherlock, like we've seen him in lots of different forms, but not everyone's done the short story. So we've become a bit more sort of adventure first, fun first, and then the big kind of deduction stuff later. So that's the big thing. I don't think we would have been able to do it. It's quite hard to write Sherlock. It's quite easy to write Watson. So maybe we've ended up with a show that I've sort of played to the strengths of writing it really, and Watson's become much bigger, and Sherlock is still important, but it's not that big kind of genius play that we were going to maybe imagine beforehand. Yeah, sorry, that's my answer. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for the answer. Right. Let's move on to the next question. This one is also without a name. And the question goes, I really enjoy the character writing and the way the dynamic between the three main characters is portrayed. I was wondering if you have a picture of how the character's dynamic is going to look in the future that you work towards, or is it something that just develops organically as you write?
Yeah, it's probably an organic thing. I know that they'll sort of they'll move closer to each other's behaviors as we go along. Sherlock will naturally become more at ease, and John obviously understands more of Sherlock, so I guess I guess maybe I'll tone down that kind of John is much less puzzled by Sherlock than he was in the first few adventures. So I guess that's the area where their dynamic's going to change. It's tricky because there's an element of kind of sitcom about it. I don't mean in terms of like the style of comedy, but more that the characters. The characters might not change all that much purely because they're set as a three in their own way. It might not be a story of massive character development in that sense. So yeah, I mean, I guess. Sorry, I'm waffling here because I haven't really thought about this much. I guess I would say they're not going to change all that much. I don't want to like pit them against each other and then kind of, reveal new sides to themselves or have like, deep emotional scars for moments and heal and change as people. I don't really it's not my cup of tea. So they'll probably be similar to as they are, but just much, much closer to each other as friends.
Yeah, very, very sweet. So next question is from Secret Octopus. The question goes, fans of the show have their own designs or visualizations of how the characters look. Do you have your own idea of how the main three look? And if so, could you describe it?
I don't think I do. I see their flats really easily, like really, really, really easily. And I wonder if in my head, they are just Paul, Harry, and Marta. I know that's really boring. But obviously I know those three and I hear those three. And I speak to them as people as well. So I guess I do just see them Or do I? No, I mean, I think, yeah, no, I think I do. I think they've kind of completely taken over in my head. But again, that's understandable because, like I say, I know them and I've worked with Paul for a very long time as well. So, yeah, they've become them. But weirdly, in the artwork, I can recognize a kind of their art form, if you know what I mean, like their sort of their visual form online. You know, you can spot it in people. They're immediately recognizable in people's artwork, which is quite an impressive phenomenon. Obviously, I'm kind of new to this world anyway, but I didn't necessarily expect that to happen. But yeah, unfortunately I'm tainted because because I know those three. I've said this before, but I do sometimes see Watson as I think their name was Noodles, who did that kind of. He looks a bit like a kind of skate. I don't know, like a kind of skater boy type thing. And I don't know whether that was just me reconnecting with my 14-year-old self. I was like, that's cool. That's what John looks like. But sometimes I guess I have that in my head. Yeah. I hope that's some kind of answer for you. Secret Octopus or whatever your name was.
Yeah, no, I agree. The artwork is really amazing. And thank you. Now, this question is from Leaf. And
Hello.
it goes, you've spoken previously about your daughter's autism diagnosis being part of the inspiration behind Pod Sherlock's being autistic. Does she inspire Sherlock's representation of autism further? Does she also love penny pasta and jumping?
She loves jumping, yes. She jumps. I can hear her jumping now, like I can hear the ceiling shaking um, in her room. So yeah, she jumps as kind of to kind of regulate, I think, really. I do think she enjoys it in terms of like a sensory thing, but I think it's much more kind of regulation, especially before she's about to go to bed. Does she love penny pasta? Yes, she does love penny pasta. I've actually included, it's a bit of a spoiler this, included in the second volume of the Tyne of Four. I've given Sherlock a trait that my daughter does for eating ravioli, tortellini, any kind of like pillow-shaped pasta. She will unravel the pasta, take out the innards, and separate the pasta shells, empty shells on one side, and the innards on the other side of her plate, and she will eat either one of them first. It does kind of interchange, but she'll pick one and then the other. So I've given Sherlock that as well. Partly because, again, it feels good for me to do that, but also it's just a slightly fascinating thing. I was in a meeting the other day in terms of her schooling, and a kind of like an expert had mentioned monotropic and polytropic thinking and brains, how they work. And I've kind of incorporated that into Sherlock as well. Yeah, so there's lots. She gets a lot. She does get a lot, considering that she's 5, and Sherlock is a grown man. That I do put a lot in there. Now, she vocally stims a lot, and I haven't given him any of those. I gave him the clicking thing, which Adam hates it when I do that. And now I've given it to Sherlock as well, so he has to hear that. So yeah, there's plenty, Leaf. There's plenty of stuff that I kind of take from her and put in. Yeah.
Thank you. Another question surrounding Sherlock, and it is from Year Defenders. I hope that's the name you want me to use. I'm not sure. And it goes, Joel, how has your intended characterization of Sherlock changed from what you first imagined to what it is now? Even following canon, your version of Sherlock is very distinct. Is it something you actively try for when you write, or is it simply a consequence of your writing?
It's slightly a consequence of Watson, and that character being who he is. Sherlock then needs to feel doesn't need to feel necessarily, but I mean, like, in terms of whenever you like any kind of like written media type thing like this, you do play off characters next to each other. It's very, very difficult to write the same character talking to each other. So Sherlock maybe is occupying a certain type of characteristic because he's playing against John, or he's bringing stuff out of John that John wouldn't have brought out of himself, if you know what I mean. So he's influenced by that. It is a little bit like Sherlock. The character that I have to come up with, Sherlock, has to kind of fit in the right way with John. So there is that. There's obviously neurodiversity. It's not helpful to anyone to just have a flawless genius and say he's autistic. That doesn't help anybody, because it gives just sort of staggering expectations to anytime someone meets an autistic person. But also it just brings no kind of interesting features to the character, really. So I guess in certain areas, I can totally understand how Conan Doyle gave him kind of little blind spots. But otherwise, he was, exceptionally, he's in the genius kind of like stratospheric brilliance. We've probably given our Sherlock a few more blind spots, to be honest. We've cleared up why he kind of can be hit and miss socially. I think Conan Doyle obviously kind of referred to Sherlock having bouts of being completely worn out and kind of having these shutdowns. We've obviously made our Sherlock, he can turn the charm on if he wishes to, but that person it really has to be worth him to go and do that. So he's kind of been shaped by the character that we put alongside him, and then kind of answering the question I said earlier, he couldn't be this absolutely enormous genius that was, almost difficult to comprehend. He was so incredible. And also I work in the areas of thinking about hyper-focusing and hyperfixations that he might have or might have had. So the character's kind of been built out of that as well. The other slight thing I will do, and it is kind of a little bit naff, but he's also become the character he has been because of the medium that he's in, which is light entertainment comedy. So sometimes we are maybe playing up his social barometer and him misreading something, or playing up the opposite of that, of him overly reading something. So yeah, he's kind of grown out of those ingredients. And of course Harry Atwell being probably one of the most prominent ingredients. Like, I think the performance that he found as Sherlock has been a massive influence. I know he talked in the Patreon event that we did in London. He talked about what he was taking from Jeremy Brett. I know he's a big fan of other detective shows, all of which I've completely forgotten. So I know that he was thinking quite closely about how his Sherlock should sound. Harry does not sound like that in real life. I mean, maybe like the timbre of his voice does, but it's not. He's not. He doesn't have those sort of spells of like rigid delivery and then these kind of like fluid weaves of delivery. He sounds. He probably sounds a lot more like me, really, in the way he talks. But yeah, he's really brought something to the character. Yeah, so it's just that like totally organic thing where like all these ingredients have come up and formed this character. I won't make this answer last forever, but what I will say is Tony Pastor at Goalhanger is obviously a big Sherlockian and a really big fan of the character. So I think to him, Sherlock is one of those kind of Superman types where he almost can do no wrong, and he's just brilliance. So a lot of credit goes to Tony in kind of letting us go, okay, yeah, he is brilliant, but there's also all of these things that he's got in his personality as well. So yeah, it's yeah, I think it's quite. I feel like it's quite nice that there's a bunch of kind of influences that have gone into it, rather than just a brief on a piece of paper that we decided how he should be. So yeah, that's the answer. That's the answer to the question. I can't remember who asked it, but good question.
Yeah, thank you. Great answer. Yeah. Okay, so this is the last Sherlock-centric question, and it is from LM Gaze. And I don't know, this one might be a bit spoilery, so I don't know if you can answer it, but it is, you've said previously that you think of Sherlock as queer, but that we are welcome to our own interpretations of your characters. Representation is a bit of a hot topic in media, and you yourself know the importance of it with the respect to autism and neurodivergence. Do you plan on making Sherlock's sexuality similarly integral to our understanding of his character and identity as his autism?
Possibly, yeah. I did say in that kind of run of tweets that I'd always, not always, I don't anymore, but I did initially feel guilty. I felt like it was quite a selfish thing to do for me to be like, by the way, he's autistic, because that's a personal attachment I have. And I know how that comes across in that I'm like, oh, I've decided he's autistic. That's the thing that I want to focus on. I don't feel bad about it anymore because I think it's really worked. In terms of that, I'm going to give you a really rubbish answer. Get ready, everybody. Get ready. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Sometimes I take certain strides with the character. Oh no, I can see the chat all laughing at me. Sometimes I see we'll take strides with the character in terms of his sexuality, and by strides, they're kind of small things. But every character's having a small step. I can understand that if you are wanting to see the queer side of Sherlock absolutely blossom, those strides do not feel big at all. They need to be much bigger. But everyone's taking small steps because it's a long journey. Sometimes we do those steps and I never envisaged putting them in now, or sometimes ever, or whatever it may be. And then other times I can feel a bit like, oh, maybe I haven't done enough in that area. So yeah, this is such a rubbish answer. I don't honestly know. It is something I do spend a lot of time thinking about. I think I'm sorry, I'm aware that this is not the Patreon service, so I'm trying not to do spoilers. And now I feel like I'm spoiling a spoiler. I feel like we're in the zone now of, I think a lot of the audience know, and I know that John and Mariana know. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that, off mic, they're having perfectly normal conversations where, we're not gradually advancing the queerness of Sherlock in any way, shape, or form. I think they will completely understand and know one another. But in terms of, when we sort of plonk it into adventures and when we tie it back to personal lives of any of the characters, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because we've spent so much time in this show just thinking about adventures. Characters in a sense of, we've sort of just assumed, we'll sort of follow that and they'll come along for the ride and we'll shape them in certain ways. So yeah, hopefully we'll go somewhere interesting and fun with it. Yeah. I mean, it's not, it came to me like it's some fantastical thing. Like, it quite early on, it just felt right. So it's not something where I have to drastically change the way I write or anything. It's just something to that we all think about and talk about, basically. Yeah. So we'll see how we go with it. Sorry, that's a rubbish answer, isn't it? But I hope that's all right.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Now, let's move on to some John-centric questions. And the first one I have is, ooh, I don't have a name for this one. I don't know if it was included, but if it was, give me a shout and I'll put in your name when I record this. And this question is, this might be a bit of a silly, small question, but I am curious. How do you decide when Sherlock calls John instead of Watson?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I think the first time he does it is Gloria Scott. and that I always think that. Sorry, I have to say, my wife always winds me up about this. That there's a ridiculous irony in that one of my a ridiculous irony is I hyperfixate on autism, and I know how ridiculous that is. Because A, I'm not autistic, and B, a lot of autism is based around hyperfixations of other things. But I sometimes think about it's called Gestalt language processing, where a lot of autistic people, or neurodiverse people generally, hear something and it lands in their head, and that's how they're going to say it. That's how they say it when they're kind of in autopilot, if you want to call it that. And Watson, the word Watson, Sherlock saying Watson, that is his autopilot. He's not thinking, that's the name that comes into his head. That's the first thing he heard, the rhythm of how he heard it, the melody of how he heard it. That's how it comes out. And I think when we hear John, that's Sherlock really thinking about his words and how he wants to speak to his best friend, basically. Having said that, obviously, we might get to a point where he might be using John more than Watson. It's tricky because I don't want to become inconsistent with it, because weirdly, Watson is such an iconic name, even though it's quite a standard surname, really. And it is quite nice to use the John device every now and again. But yeah, that's my rule of thumb. Watson is the natural thing that's one part of his brain is just firing off without him even thinking, and then John is when he's really thinking about how to address Dr. Watson. So yeah, that's how I think about it. It doesn't sort of just slip out in the writing, just generally I'll sort of feel it, really.
Great. Thank you. This next question is from Emily85591. And the question is, in the book, I always interpreted Watson to be somewhat of a quiet soul, and Sherlock to be a talker. What made you decide to go on the right of Watson in this adaptation, with him being more of a people pleaser?
Yeah, ultimately, I suppose because he was the host of the show, I think I had a sense of how to pull kind of like observational comedy out of John Watson, and he can't really do that unless he's a big talker. The other thing is, the Watson that we know from the books is writing them for us, and now because we're audio, someone's got to talk the adventures for us. So he kind of had to be that person. And the reason why I can't, the reason why I don't want Sherlock to be too much of a talker is, and part of the reason why we brought in the stewing, where what Sherlock always says he's kind of stewing on his thoughts or stewing on the case and things like that, is because if we are drip fed constantly throughout an adventure, Sherlock's every thought on every matter, you don't get the payoff of. You just don't get the payoff of like Sherlock bringing all these kind of like points together. It's much nicer to hear them once they've been pre-assembled by him, if you know what I mean. So you do get that big kind of set piece. So I guess I went that way with it. Yeah, I went that way with it. I think it's half because I think that's how I envisaged Watson, first of all, but secondly, we're stuck by the medium that we're in ultimately. So yeah.
Fair enough. This question is from Ramped. Will John's
Hey,
PTSD
Ram.
slash nightmare slash relationship with his injury be explored further?
Will it be explored further? Possibly. Possibly, yeah. The reason why I'm slightly hesitant is that John's kind of come into a happy place in his life. and I guess I'm trying to picture a world in which that kind of slips a little, where he kind of topples on his newfound footing in life. I think for people with PTSD, generally speaking, because of most stress disorders, when life is going well, the stress and things that are exacerbated by stress are much more low key. So right now, I see it as quite a low key, maybe a hum in the background. But yeah, I should probably, in moments of peril and distress, see how that would be affected by PTSD. As you can tell, I haven't really thought about it too much, which is not really fair on Watson, is it? But yeah, that's my answer there. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you. Now this is a bit of a sillier question, and it is from Silly Goose Helms. I don't know how to pronounce it on Twitter, and it is: does John, Mariana, or Sherlock, in your mind / adaptation, have hay fever ever? This is an odd question, but hay fever sucks, and I need to know if any of them have it.
That's a good question. I don't think so, because I'm lucky enough to not have hay fever, so I don't spend much time thinking about hay fever. But I understand the concern. No, I don't think they do, because we've done the summer, haven't we? And none of them were sneezing or, I'm trying to think of other symptoms of hay fever, eyes watering. So no, unfortunately, I'm gutted to announce that none of the main three have hay fever. Can dogs have hay fever? Should we give Archie hay fever? Seems unfair. Leave that with me. Maybe we'll give Archie hay fever.
Great. Right. This one is also, I think it's from Emily Care. And this question goes,
Hi, Emily Claire.
we love the podcast. Have there been any highlights of fan interactions for you, if you have any?
Ooh. All John lines are highlights. For those that you don't know, on the Patreon Discord, Watson will appear online every now and again. And they are fun. Weird, but fun. And then emails are always great. As I've said before, our capacity to reply to them
I'm just,
are
is my audio
terrible.
alright? I'm not sure.
Oh, is your audio failing? Can you hear me, Bottler?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, emails are always great. We don't necessarily have the capacity to reply to them, but we certainly do have the capacity to read them and share them with everyone involved in the show. So I'd probably say, outside of like big videos, like, share that, but,
I think you're lagging. Yeah, Joel, I think your audio is lagging a bit. Robot Joel. I cannot hear what you're saying if you are saying something. Oh, 1, 2, 3, I heard. Yeah. I was gonna say you could try entering again.
Testing. Does
Oh
this
yeah,
work?
you're back.
You sound delighted to hear me. That's good. I forgot what I was saying. Oh yeah,
Um,
fan stuff. Yeah, so those big ones, obviously, they're standout. They're amazing. They would obviously be the highlight. They're really good, obviously, but and just seeing stuff that has a lot of effort going to them. The birthday video we did today was really great. But I would say, in terms of like the day to day, I think the emails are probably the best. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
answer. Love it. This next question is from, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry, but it's Nicole. I don't know how to pronounce it at. The question is this experience, the show's growth over the past year, anything like you expected? If not, when did you realize that it was different, and how are you handling it?
It's not what we expected. No, it's not what we expected. But I tell you what, I think we did have in the back of our minds that it could be big purely because Goal Hanger have really big reach, and they don't have that many shows. So when they do endorse something, lots of people go and listen. It's not like Spotify or Audible, who have a catalog of 600 or 700 shows. So we knew we'd get that initial big boost. I think where it's been a surprise is we didn't expect the audience we have at all. We didn't expect the kind of engagement that we get at all. And I guess we never pictured fans. Do you know what I mean? Like I think we just pictured listeners. And it's probably taken Adam and I quite a while to kind of, understand that we have fans rather than, I mean, obviously we have, you passive listener that, listen to us on the train and maybe forget about the show by the time they've gone home. But yeah, I don't think we ever predicted having fans. So yeah, that's how I think the show for us, we're really surprised in that area, I think. Yeah, but do you know what? It's one of those things where, like, if we'd spent like 5 minutes doing market research, we might have figured this out. But we didn't do any market research. It's just so it's all been like a nice surprise, really. But yeah, I would say that I think we always thought we could have a shot at it being big, but big in the sense of just people listening. Really, we didn't think we'd get the kind of engagement that we have. That's the big surprise, I think.
Yeah, great. Now we do have a bit more time than I expected. So are you up for some more silly questions? Not really like
Hit me. Let's
pod
do it.
related specifically. Right. So this question is from Otter Posses, and it just goes, favorite dinosaur, go.
Oh man, I would say we're talking about species of dinosaur. Like, I'm not expected to say Barney. We're talking about species of dinosaurs, aren't we? So I can't say T-Rex. That's really boring. I don't know dinosaurs very well. I'm gonna go raptor. That's a popular one. Like Velociraptor. Is that a thing? I'm gonna get kicked off the chat because everyone likes dinosaurs. Yeah, let's go Velociraptor.
Great. Now this question is from Clara Farah, and it is, what's your guys' favorite music?
Oh, I'm rubbish, Bottler, to be honest. I just like music. Like, I mean, I don't. I'm not going to a gig anytime soon. Put it that way. I didn't go to many, even when I could have done. So I basically like everything. Adam is the big music man, so he's probably the one who's got a much more interesting answer. Yeah, generally I'll listen to absolutely anything. If I'm in the car and I haven't got one of my children shouting at me for a very specific song, then it will probably be something like Hosier or maybe George Ezra. I don't know if that's a lame answer. I don't care if it is. And then maybe some 70s classics. That's all I've got for you.
Amazing. Who is Your is amazing. I will just say I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Now, last silly question we have is also from Leaf, and it is, how do you explain John lines to your family? Do you tell your wife you're going to do a John line?
um, I haven't explained it, to be honest. I don't think I have. Maybe she knows. I don't know. No, I haven't explained it. Probably should have done. Yeah, it's our weird thing, us us Sherlock and Co people. And yeah, my wife hasn't asked. Because the thing is, then if she read it, it's obviously all completely insane. So then I look insane. So no, it's right now, it's all secret.
Great. And let me see if I have any more silly questions for you. Give me just a second.
I will give you a second. This is nice, isn't it, everyone? Yeah, I think it's nice. Nice way to celebrate a birthday. No one got me a cake. Oh, man.
All right, I have another question for you. It is
Hit
from
me.
Bella X Bear 01, and is,
Hi,
what
Bella
is your
Expert.
favorite running bit for the series? Like John always getting his shoes dirty / ruined.
Yeah, that is a good one. I would say. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I know I write the show, but I'm trying to think of if there's that many. I like a little kind of I mean, I guess it's foreshadowing in a sense, but a little bit of theme creep, sort of seeping in. It always kind of feels nice to get those bits out. People have already noted that the show has sort of themes of water involved. Oh dear. And then also trains. I always like our train moments. Do you know what? One I forgot to keep. I forgot to do, and I dropped it, and did quite enjoy it. Was people calling Archie fat? Not fat. He's not fat, but I think he's just bigger than when Carol was looking after him. Yeah, for some reason I kind of dropped that one. There is actually another thread that is not. It don't worry, it's not exciting. But there is actually another thread that Adam and I get quite a kick out of. That we have picked up maybe 5 or 6 adventures ago. That we're going to keep kind of pushing along because I just think it's an interesting thing to do. So there is that. Yeah, I would say thread-wise, I think Chubby Archie is probably my favourite, and I've let myself down by not bringing it up for a while. Yeah, is that my answer? Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, great. All right, last silly question before I have just an ending one, and it is from Ellen Gaze again, and it is favorite biscuit.
Favorite biscuit. Now, obviously, this is a flawed question because my favorite biscuit is also my worst enemy because I just keep eating it, which would probably be the custard cream, which when you look at it or anyone describes it to you, you go, that's a really boring biscuit, Joel. Why do you like that? But then you eat one and then you have to eat like 10 of them. And also the weird thing is like they're not rich or filling, so you can eat 10 of them. Like an amazing, like fancy big cookie from some like gourmet store will fill you up and you go, well, I'm not going to eat for 2 hours. I feel awful. custard creams, honestly, you could go for days. So yeah, I will say custard creams. I don't keep them in the house because I'll just eat them all. Yeah, that's my favorite biscuit. I know I'm not even going to look in the chat, but I know it's going to be full of Americans going, "What on earth are you talking about?" But yeah, I mean, my wife's American. She's been here for 16 years, and she hasn't met a custard cream yet. That's partly down to me being just. I want to. I mean, I might as well show her heroin, to be honest. So yeah, that's my favorite. Oh no, his bottler's mic disappeared. Oh no, bottler's disappeared entirely. That's it.
Oh,
I'm in charge now. Oh no, she's
I'm
back. Bottler's back.
my Discord restarted for some reason.
Oh man.
But I'll just give you an ending question because we don't have that much time left. And it is from Pigeon Tracks. This question goes.
Hey, Pigeon.
Sorry?
I was just saying hi to Pigeon.
Oh. Sherlock Co has been a huge inspiration for a lot of people to not just create but share their own story adaptations. How does it feel how does it feel to be behind that creative inspiration for people, to be inspired by something you did to do something of their own as well?
I mean, yeah, it's honestly, it is. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. I think ultimately there's part of me, a very British part that that you know kind of shies away from not necessarily praise, but like I mean that's probably one of the highest forms of praise, right? It's someone putting their time and energy and talents into working with your characters and stuff like that. So maybe I'm a bit being a bit British about it. And then there's other part of me that's I know how good Conan Doyle's original characters are, and I know how good Paul Waggett is, and how good Harry Atwell and Martha De Silva are. So I this isn't me deflecting and not taking obviously an amazing compliment, but there's so many people that go into building these characters up and making them how they are when they come into people's ears. I guess I'm sort of proud and pleased for everyone involved in the process. Really, for me personally, I always think like whilst I am living in the moment and being like constantly impressed and kind of like touched by most things the fans do, I think realistically it'll probably hit me later in life of sort of how special it is / was. So yeah, I think that's how. Sorry for the British answer, but I think that's how sort of how I feel about it. If I sort of dived into the of how special it is, it would take some time for me to really like properly grapple with how kind of proud I am. But yeah, sorry for the Britishness. Sorry, everyone.
And that's the last question I have for you. But thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for making this podcast. It's genuinely so amazing, and I mean, it's been a full year, and it's so good. I mean,
Thanks, Butler. Thank you for doing this again. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for coming to listen, and thank you everyone for listening to that Dr. John Watson guy, his podcast. It's been a crazy year, and we'll do a few more crazy years. And yeah, we're honoured, and I talk to people involved with the show, the Harrys, the Pauls, and the Martyrs of this world, the Adams, and you're always on our minds, and we're always talking about feedback and the things that you guys have said and done and made. And yeah, it's a real honour. It's been a great year, and there'll be plenty more to come, I'm sure.
thank you, and thank you to everyone for listening. And this is the end of the Q&A.
Bye,
Yeah, have
everyone.
a
Thank you,
very good.
Butler.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a very good night, everyone, or morning or day, or whatever it is for you.
Bye.